Hello, this is Sushil and welcome to you next officer. So today I brought you new question whereby I would be looking at imparting you some knowledge on a question and how to approach it. So without wasting time, let's get into it. So the question reads out as what do you understand by scientific temper? So the question primarily focuses on what is scientific temper, and there is another word to be defined, and that is spirit of enquiry. So the question reads out as what do you understand by scientific temper and spirit of enquiry? As a responsible citizen, and then comes, so you can divide the question as part one, and then as a responsible citizen of a country, how would you fulfill your fundamental duty? So scientific temperament and spirit of enquiry would form fundamental duty to develop scientific temperament and humanism and spirit of enquiry. So you're finding all these keywords. So the first step before answering a question would be to look for keywords and what are areas that we need to identify. So scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of enquiry. So this humanism means a kind of rationalism, thinking rationally, because that rationality is what uh, changes human and distinguishes human from other species. So let's get into it. So how to introduce? As the first part asks directly the question about what is scientific temper and what is spirit of inquiry, we introduce simply with definition. So the definition, we would write two definitions. One is scientific temper. After scientific temper, we would write another definition of spirit of inquiry because they explicitly asked both of them. Remember, if you can establish a link between both the definitions, yes, that would add value to your answer. So that's how you simply, without wasting much of time and without thinking, you get to the point defining both scientific temper and spirit of inquiry. Okay. Now, and again, as I reiterate in every answer, I would again emphasize on not dividing the questions equally, but you need to be a judge for your own answer initially before writing and decide this is minor part may account from for maybe 10% of what actually it is. The actual question starts from here. As responsible citizen of country, how would you fulfill the fundamental duty to develop scientific temperament, humanism, and spirit of inquiry? Now, or another way of introducing is to refer to Article 51A, which was inserted in 42nd Amendment, which talks about fundamental duties, or else you can use this definition and make a transition to the body with this connecting paragraph of Article 51A. So that will give you some flow. So to develop scientific temperament in many of the citizens, what would be the hurdles? If you identify, then you can define your own role and follow that path. So, first thing first, social stigma. Social stigma forms majorly the largest contributor to stop scientific temperament and spirit of inquiry. Then comes some rigidities formed maybe due to culture, religion. Of course, culture and religion are to be protected, but not given an edge over scientific temperament to form a rigidity. So, a rigidity due to tradition and rigidity due to, maybe you can call tradition, culture, religion, everything else. Because if you look at maybe the social levels that creep in, maybe sati or untouchability or anything else, it was like the convention was coming from our ancestors and we are following. We don't know whether it is good, right? We don't judge it, we don't think about it even. So that thought process has to be hampered and to be made progressive. This progression will propel our country to next stage whereby we can build better character among citizens. So, if you ask me what could be the uh, core part of body, as we identified what are rigidities and already made an entry into the body. So, changing an adult is slightly difficult than changing a kid, or you can call children. So let's focus on children and slowly try to change adults as well if possible. But if we catch children at tender age, we can shape their minds and let them not influenced by those illogical aspects which would hamper scientific temperament. So we could start with side heading of catch them early. This is a famous slogan, so if someone knows, it's good. If not, you're learning today. So the catch them early phrase to focus on children to inculcate and nurture scientific temperament and spirit of inquiry will ensure they don't form any hard opinions. So hard opinions are something that would form hurdles and hamper their thinking. So the tenderness by nature children have has to be capitalized. Then among children, don't force religion or tradition on them. Let them accept on the merit of it. So hope you are understanding how. See, this question can be asked either in GS-2 as it relates fundamental duties, everything else, or in GS-4 with ethics. I think you people have seen our ethics video, which has recently been uploaded. If not, we'll definitely produce a link in description so that you can access that and also look at how it's going. So GS2 and GS4 have some overlapping things with governance, with administration part, and these kind of things where it speaks about constitutional morality. So we would deal most of them parallelly. So don't forget to visit that space as well. So don't force a religion is another side heading under which we would write some content. This would form the second point, and we would bring some broader perspective hereafter. And that broader perspective would speak about don't resist change. Change is inevitable. Accept the change and don't be clingy to the older things and don't change according to time is not acceptable. So don't resist change. Even our ancient Indian traditional thinkers like Gautam Buddha also spoke about anitya, which would bring about meaning of not resisting the change but adjusting and finding new equilibrium according to the change. So I'll try to support these natures is what you do as citizens, and you will then appeal for what is necessity of, I mean, uh, necessity necessity for what spirit, I mean, you choose a different part here to create awareness and benefits of what scientific temperament and spirit of inquiry would help individual even in this private sphere and not get fooled by various entities and various stakeholders of society. So that's how I would mention then. And here in this kind of answers the conclusion plays a major role. So the transition from introduction to body also has to be smooth, and even the way you conclude would grab attention, and that determines larger portion of marks that you procure. So I think it's time to actually go to answer and look at how we are doing it. So if you look at that, you can write definitions, and then you can form some kind of a flowchart or diagram which would represent how the challenging the belief, the question, but don't reject the norms. Norms could be followed, but definitely after questioning, which would which would drive you in a path of search for knowledge inquisitively. Then you would think of validation, and after validation you accept. So this process, if you follow in your life, will bring drastic change in your behavior and inculcate spirit of inquiry, and as a result you find a temperament which is very much scientific. So you then go to mention fundamental duties so that you can make transition into the body. As we spoke about focusing on children, we say catch them young, don't force religion, don't resist the change, and we write some good content under the heading as we discussed earlier in this video. Then we would speak about necessity to develop scientific temperament. We say it helps in eliminating social levels, and we also say about how it leads to holistic development, all-round development. Holistic means all-round, all-round development of humans, and it builds social capital. Remember what social capital is. It's about the extra benefit that we reap due to the harmony exists in the society among each other. And also, people with scientific temperament will be very much value neutral to understand science and allied fields. So you'll find countries whose citizens are with scientific temperament will contribute the country and even develop this field of science within the country. So that's an extra benefit which would add to economy if that happens. Then what about spirit of inquiry that challenges the cultural hegemony? This hegemony has to be challenged so that we could establish a just society. So justice can't always be left to judiciary. Even the society, of course, only in the legal terms, they can't take force in their hand, has to play a role in countering the cultural hegemony. It develops your mentality, it makes you immune from fake information. This has been new epidemic that has been spreading in our country. So if we would think about it, we would develop spirit of inquiry to make ourselves immune. The spirit of inquiry acts as a vaccine to fake information epidemic that has been spreading faster than even COVID-19. Okay. So what about helping you during the emotional turmoil? Even the spirit of inquiry helps there. Suppose you are thinking about some useless thing and you're draining your energy. You many a times even we think about trivial things, but after retrospecting within couple of years, you find it was very silly that I wasted time just out of apprehension. Such things will be stopped if you develop spirit of inquiry. And more than anything else, this spirit of inquiry strengthens democracy. People will question wrongdoings and other elements which may weaken democracy, so that questioning spirit will strengthen actual democracy. So it won't be a flawed democracy if we develop that questioning nature. Now, before concluding, you can cue a comment where the trust deficit often created by weakening belief system if it is without scientific temperament. Why is the trust deficit created? Trust deficit is created because often whatever is promised is not delivered through actions. So if it is not delivered through actions, it has to be questioned, and that questioning nature is all about spirit of inquiry. To do that, you need to argue logically without logical fallacies. So you can also add these logical fallacies. You can discuss about these logical fallacies in ethics. It will be dealt in detail. It will be in detail there. So actually the same question could also be asked in GS-4 as I mentioned. So many of the ethical aspects of constitutional morality would creep into this answer. Hence, so if your spirit of inquiry is coupled without logical fallacies, then that is what scientific temperament is all about. So that will help you transform the weakening belief system with trust deficit to a legitimate or believed in government. So people just don't believe in you just because they are electing you. Because in democracy, even governments will get absolute majority if they get 38-39% of votes. So rest of them need to believe in the system. That belief is established by the questions come out of spirit of inquiry. with scientific temperament, as scientific temperament is always associated with absence of logical fallacies. And I mentioned you that end of the day, your conclusion is what determines your final marks in this kind of constitutional morality answers in GS2. The constitutional morality requires some GS4 terminology. So have a look at the way the conclusion has been phrased. A nation thrive without cultural heritage. Yes, the countries like Israel, they don't brag about their past, that we were that great, we had thousands of years history. Or even without producing literature, the country may thrive. So even producing something worth mentioning, the country can thrive. But rarely a country thrives in long run if it puts superstitions about region, or reason can't be sidelined and given priority to superstition because it was our cultural heritage, or because it was in a literature that was worth mentioning. Hence, individual development and national prosperity could be ensured of developing scientific temperament and spirit of inquiry among younger ones. So, focusing on children and young among the youth of country is essential. Why? Even within even within the answer's conclusion or way forward, we were mentioning about a country that can't be thriving without cultural heritage, but it will thrive if it puts reason above superstition. Hope I was able to add good amount of value, and the discussion will help you producing in better answer for GS2 and balancing them. Even if such questions are asked in GS4, you need to mention this terminology that was often discussed within the video, like logical fallacies and other things like social capital or just society, the cultural hegemony. You can access this PDF and look at the answer once again and try to produce a similar answer if possible. Till the time I meet you next, bye bye. And with next answer, I'll be back tomorrow.